According to his creators, Daffy duck is said to be an American black duck, a species of waterfowl common across much of eastern North America. While physical characteristics like his bill shape match this species, his color scheme is much closer to that of the black scoter, a species of sea duck whose mating call happens to sound like a first grader's recorder concert. The main difference between Daffy's color scheme and the black scoter is the ring around his neck. But luckily for us, this is just clothing as seen by this clip. That said, this feature does appear to be based upon a male mallard's breeding plumage, which is a bird all too familiar to most Americans. As an aside, in the winter, these ducks will lose their green feathering, making them much more resemble the females of the species. It is still possible to identify gender variations during this time, however, as all you have to do is look at the state of the bill. Males will always have a yellow bill, whereas females will have an orangish-black bill. This fact really isn't relevant to Daffy at all, but it is a remarkable piece of trivia that you can share at parties. You'll probably only get a few stares of confusion or disapproval, so I call that a win. With Daffy's origins explained, stick around as we cover the other members of Space Jam's Toon Squad. Remember to like and subscribe, and let me know what other characters you'd like me to cover in the future. Come on and slam, and welcome to the Biodiverse.
Welcome to the Space Jam, alright.
Slam! Jam! Hey, do what you gonna do? Do what you gonna do? Slam! Jam! Hey, DJ, turn it up. Listen, he gon' burn it up. Bang! Bang! Come on and slam! And welcome to the jam! Slam! Jam!
Welcome to the Space Jam, alright.
Taking the world by storm in 1996, Space Jam focuses on the unlikely pairing of Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes. When an alien megacorporation threatens to enslave them and their loved ones, they compete in a basketball scrimmage in order to maintain their freedom. And as long as you haven't been living under a rock, you'll know Space Jam: A New Legacy is right around the corner. This time, the Toons reprise their jerseys for another match. Joining forces with LeBron James, they must stop an even bigger threat this time: Don Cheadle.
Stay to the end. Do not leave. I'm naked at the end.
Considering most of the Looney Tunes are based on real animals, it's a no-brainer we'd cover this set of characters, starting with the main attraction himself, Bugs Bunny. There are two natural candidates for Bugs, those being the rabbit and the hare species. Before continuing, it's worth noting that bunny really isn't the jargon of a real animal. Instead, it's a pet name given to some rabbits and hares. It's similar to referring to a dog as a puppy or a cat as a kitty. You get the idea. One of Bug's most iconic features is his ears, which he proudly flaunts. This feature would suggest hare, as they're the leoparids who have the massive flaps. On the other hand, living underground in a burrow is a behavior much more common with rabbits rather than hares, as hares tend to be land-dwelling creatures. While it may be confusing to determine which of the two Bugs is, there are other clues that we can use to identify his origins. Bugs himself is based upon a character from the 40s known as Max Hare, the star of none other than The Tortoise and the Hare. You all know the story. It's easy to see similarities between the two, from the quippy, eccentric personality to the large auricle. That's what you call the outer part of an ear, by the way. Also, take a look at this old cartoon from the 1940s. This mad scientist pours a substance on Bugs to take away his invisibility. Why is Bugs invisible? Don't worry about it, we'll cover that later. What is important is what that substance is named. Yup, a be-right dad joke just pushed the scales ever more one-sided. Considering these, it's clear from the evidence that we provided that Bugs is more similar to hare-like qualities than rabbit ones. So, which hare is the most Bugs-like? Well, there are many possibilities, as there are 62 extant species on Earth today. There's the snowshoe hare, the brown hare, the mountain hare, the jackalope, Harry Potter. My favorite choice for the job, however, is the black-tailed jackrabbit. Despite its name, they are actually hares, and not rabbits at all. This way, you could refer to Bugs both as a rabbit and a hare, and be correct. So no matter how you dice it, you're going to appease the fans of both the hare and rabbit stands. You may be wondering why the peculiar name. Well, this is due to none other than Mark Twain, who in his novel, Roughing It, referred to these animals as something else. I'll let you imagine what you could expand the name Jack to. but if you need a little hint, it shares a name with a particular TV show from the early 2000s starring Steve-O. Enough of a clue? Good. Well, the name stuck, and the animal's original name, the American desert hare, got ditched out for this new one. Not only does the name work out better than expected, but appearance-wise, it possesses a gray coat, a lighter belly, white paws, and big floppas! Finally, considering Bugs' mischievous and annoying behavior, I think it's fitting to refer to Bugs as, this choice word. God, he really is a jackass. On the other hand, Lola represents the domesticated rabbit, as her ears aren't as long or prominent as Bugs' are, and her overall blonde and cream coloring is based upon the species' fawn coat. And with that, we'll be moving on, as there's nothing else noteworthy about this character.
That's all, folks.
Now on to Porky, the third main character of the Looney Tunes. Porky is either a large white or Yorkshire pig. Other breeds of pink pigs, like the Welsh pig, offer a plausible stand-in, but Porky's perky ears are unlike that of this breed. That said, they are a staple for the big white in Yorkshire. The reason I'm comfortable grouping two different breeds together as inspiration comes down to the origin of these pigs. The big white originated in the 1860s in England, being bred from the Yorkshire pig itself. This breed was created for farming purposes, as their large size allows for more meat to be harvested per individual. As such, while Porky is mostly small, so you'd think it'd be the Yorkshire, there is a new cartoon known as Wabbit that is out, and in this one, Porky is a lot larger than usual. So, for the sake of the Space Jam variant, I'll say Porky is most likely a Yorkshire pig. We'll breeze by this next one. Foghorn Leghorn, I'll say, is based upon the Leghorn breed of chicken. If you're a returning viewer, you'll know that I covered this animal in my Breath of the Wild episode for the Cuckoo. What I will say about Foghorn is that his comb shape appears to be inspired by a single comb shape, though with much fewer ridges than the average rooster. What you may not know is that Foghorn himself is based upon a radio talk show character from the 40s known as Senator Claghorn, played by Kenny Delmar. Claghorn popularized the phrase, I'll say, showing how big of a plagiarism the Looney Tunes actually are. First Bugs, now Foghorn. Who's next? You're going to tell me Tweety is based upon a skeleton that happens to be red and also a talk show from the 50s, who also happened to have a character that talked like a child?
You guys remember Junior, the mean little kid? Remember him? He said, if I do it, I get a whipping. If I don't do it, I get a whipping. I do it.
Oh, for the love of. Tweety and Sylvester are the two pets of Granny Webster. They pretty much have a Tom and Jerry dynamic, but with a bird. They're enemies, but kind of friends at the same time when the plot calls for it. It's complicated. Anyways, Sylvester is the least interesting of the two, and appears to be a domesticated cat sporting a tuxedo pattern. While the species isn't that interesting, his name does have a fun Easter egg. Sylvester's name is derived from the Latin name for the European wildcat, Felis sylvestris sylvestris. No deeper meaning here, just a fun tidbit. Tweety is next, and is meant to represent a domesticated canary. In nature, this bird has a greenish-yellow color, and its body is covered in spots. However, through selective breeding, these birds can now be found in orange, red, white, and the one we're looking for here, pure yellow. The yellow morph of this species is the most widespread, so much so it's become the default picture for most canaries. Halftime! Take 5, we'll be right back. Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. These two are almost always independent from the other Looney Tunes characters, and could work independently as their own show, which makes Space Jam even more special as it's a rare opportunity to see them interact with the rest of the cast. They pretty much have a Tom and Jerry dynamic, but with a gun. Wile E is, as his name implies, a coyote, a medium-sized canine of North America. They are pretty intelligent animals and will actually hunt roadrunners in real life. For the name Wile E. Coyote, it's a play on the word wily, which means skilled at gaining an advantage, especially deceitfully. Which, yeah, obviously fits this character. Roadrunner, on the other hand, is a bit more complicated. Only two species of Roadrunner exist in the wild, the greater and the lesser Roadrunner, none really resembling the color scheme of the character, as they're predominantly brown and white throughout. Since the lesser Roadrunner does have more blue around its eyes, this would be a better fit in my opinion, but most sources online say they're actually based upon the greater Roadrunner, So this one's really up to your interpretation. Before leaving this duo, it's worth mentioning a roadrunner's top speed is 26 miles, which is insane as this would be considered speeding in a school zone. That said, a coyote's top speed? 40 miles per hour? If Wile would stop building traps and just hit the track, his worries would be over. So he's either horrible at his job, or he's doing it on purpose? Okay, have you ever heard the theory that Tom never catches Jerry because he secretly really likes having him around? Yet he continues to hunt him because he knows if he stops, he'll be replaced by another cat that will actually kill Jerry? The same scenario might apply to this dynamic duo, but with a gun. Roadrunner isn't the only character with speed. Speedy Gonzales was introduced in 1953's Cattails for Two. He looked much different during his early days, sporting a red t-shirt and a set of buck teeth. But his speed, that was always there. Speedy, I believe, is based upon a Mexican harvest mouse, a tiny brown mouse that feeds upon seeds and grass. Appearance, size, geographical location, all primary reasons for choosing this species. But in the Looney Tunes show, you know, the one on Cartoon Network in the 2010s, Speedy is the owner of a restaurant, so he has to harvest his ingredients. No, that's awful. I'm so bad at this. Wordplay aside, I do think the Mexican harvest mouse is the species best fit for the job. Taz the Tasmanian devil is next, and this one's pretty obvious. While the brown color scheme is certainly odd for Tasmanian devils, the body shape and devil horn motif is certainly there. On top of this, some devils do have a more brownish coat than a black one, so we can rest assured knowing it does at least fit. Considering how fun the character of Taz is, however, I didn't want to leave him quite yet, so here's a fun fact. You know the spin he does in the cartoons in order to turn into a tornado? That behavior is displayed by actual Tasmanian devils. When threatened, they will rapidly spin in circles to confuse their opponent and make themselves appear more prominent. Other behaviors while threatened include snapping, howling, charging, and glaring their teeth at their prey. This vicious behavior is how they got their names in the first place, so it's pretty fitting that Taz also displays these as well.
Let's get ready to rumble! Y'all ready for this?
Finally, let's go over the newest member of the Toon Squad, Gossamer. Remember how I said we would get back to Bugs' invisibility situation? Well, the episode where this happened also happened to be Gossamer's debut, who was called Rudolph back then. Since I promised I'd answer what was going on with Bugs, he somehow found himself in a lair with a mad scientist, and was being hunted down by Gossamer, who was a creation of the scientist. Bugs applied this invisibility substance in order to hide from Gossamer. Thinking back on it, it probably wasn't worth keeping you in the dark about this for so long. But it did lead to an excellent segue. I'm sure Gossamer isn't exactly what you'd expect to see in an episode like this, rightfully so. Most sources simply refer to him as a monster with no discernible origins. But if we look hard enough, I think we can find something. Appearance-wise, we have a body covered in shaggy red hair, 2 humps on the top of his head, a pair of arms with hands and opposable thumbs, and a pair of tennis shoes. Quite the particular appearance, and as far as I remember, no documented species on Earth carry these physical characteristics. So maybe I'm just crazy for suggesting he's based upon an animal at all. But let's go back a second. Notice how I said documented? What if instead we go into a world of non-documented cryptids? If you weren't aware, cryptozoology is the study of animals whose existence is unbacked by science, lacking concrete, tangible evidence, and their existence is carried mainly through eyewitness accounts. These animals range drastically in notoriety and ridiculousness, from common ones like the Loch Ness Monster and previously mentioned jackalope, to more straight-up ridiculous and insane, like the Fresno Nightcrawler and the Wampus Cat. Have fun looking those up. Perhaps the most well-known and studied cryptid of all time, however, is Bigfoot. Sightings of bipedal hominids are reported worldwide, with Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, inhabiting the United States of America and parts of Canada. Let's cut to the chase. I think Gossamer is likely a Sasquatch or Sasquatch-like creature. While his silhouette may be unlike that of a, and I'm using air quotes here, real Bigfoot, take a look at this. Bigfoot is a character in the previously mentioned show, Wabbit, and takes an uncommon approach to Bigfoot appearance-wise. Also, what was one of the details of Gossamer? His giant shoes he uses to cover his big feet. Sasquatches themselves are reported to black or brown in color, but in Florida, a variation of Bigfoot known as the skunk ape has documented sightings of a creature found with red fur. As such, I believe this is pretty good evidence for Gossamer being based upon a Sasquatch. Before we go, I did want to mention one other character. Remember to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment about which other animals you'd like me to cover next. Before I forget, we have LeBron, who, of course, is a goat.